Okay, here we are back again. This is installment 14, I believe, on the Frankenpanther project. Today we're going to be doing some cables up here, and I want to show you how I go about soldering the ends on. Anyway, some days you feel like you shouldn't even be out here at the shop, and other days, you know, it's like everything just seems to go perfectly, you know. And anyway, as you can see, I'm starting to get a cable geared up for this. This is actually a series of, I think I bought 10 of these Norton clutch cables from British Cycle Supply. Hi guys. Anyway, yeah, these were made improperly with the wrong end on the handle side, so I got these, I think, well, I can't remember how much I paid for them, but they were cheap anyway, so I bought 10 of them for exactly this sort of purpose. Anyways, I've got the cable going here into my anchor point on the brake hub. Then back here, this little unit that you're looking at right there that I've decided to use as an adjuster, that's something I made years ago for a decompressor unit on a Briggs & Stratton engine. I was fitting into a copy bicycle of a 1913 BSA. Anyway, I still had it. I picked it up. I said, geez, I wonder if that'll fit in that adjuster hole in this Honda hub here. And sure enough, it did. And the cable end is an absolutely perfect fit for that in there. So, you know, I think this is one of those things that meant to be. Now, I've measured up here. I shortened up this cable. What I do to get these ends off is I just heat them up just enough with a torch that the plastic on the end here just lets go of this crimped area, and then you can pull it right off without damaging anything. And I do exactly the same thing when I put it back on. I heat it just enough so that it melts the plastic as it's going back in, and then when the plastic cools off, it's just as solidly on there as it was in the first place. Now, I actually ran that up to the handle, and I've marked this cable somewhere on there. Can't see it right now, but I've marked it where I need to cut it off the right length to fit in these handles up here. And this type of handle, it doesn't have an adjuster on the handle, so you have to be pretty close, because the only adjustments you've got is the one down on the brake. Now, moving to the other side, I got real lucky with this. I picked up a couple of cables at one of the swap meets, I think it was last fall, and this one had a little tag on it that said AJS matchless clutch. Well, by God, that's exactly what it is, because when I fit it into that clutch on this Berman transmission, which I'm pretty sure is off a matchless or an AJS, it was a perfect fit. The only thing I had to do was make a little sleeve to go around the pin on the end of the cable, because the pin was too small for the hole in these anal type levers. Anyway, that's enough for now. The next thing we're going to do is make up an end and solder it to that front brake cable. So I'm going to show you how I go about doing that. Stand by. Oh, I'm getting real technical here now. I actually found a little tripod that'll hold my camera, and I got it up on a stool. So hopefully you might be able to see a little bit of what's going on here. This little guy right here is a cable end that I made up on the lathe. Of course, I drilled a hole through it. You can see that one end has got quite a deep countersink in it. That's because I'm going to spread the ends out on this cable once it's in through here. And then when I solder it, it's going to give it a really good grip on there. Now this, as you can see, is steel. I prefer to use brass when I make these cable ends, but you know, the cable is steel too, so it shouldn't be a problem. So anyway, as long as, if you're soldering with steel, you have to use something like that, the acid type paste, in order to solder it. If you're using copper, you can use the rosin core flux, which is mainly for radio equipment and that sort of stuff. Yeah, my dad taught me how to solder when I was about 14 or 13 or 14 or so, something like that. He was an electronics teacher, so I do know how to solder pretty well, and that's his fault. So anyway, let's get going on this. So I'm going to just set that little piece there. Actually, I'll set it down there because I've got to free this cable from the vise for a second. And I'm going to put the end of that cable right into that nasty old flux there. Yep. Then I'm going to set the end on there like that and very carefully slide it down over. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to spread the ends of that cable out a bit so that they'll fit really well into that countersink that's at the end of that nipple, and we'll make a really strong joint there. Now this is just regular steel cable. If you were using stainless steel cable for this sort of thing, you cannot use regular solder for that. You would have to use silver solder, and that stuff is a lot harder to deal with. Plus, you need to run a lot hotter with it. Now, you want to get enough of that flux on there so you know you have plenty. And if you're using an older cable, something that's not brand spanking new like this one, well, you're going to want to. Where am I going with this? You're going to want to make sure that it's clean, so that you can't really solder very well on a dirty cable. Now I'm going to leave that just a little bit loose in the vise. You can see that it's not tightened up that way. I'm not going to lose a whole lot of heat out through the cable because I want the heat to go down the cable a little bit. Alright, now what I'm using here, this is 60-40, come on baby, come off of there. 60-40 solder for radios. It does have rosin in the core, but like I say, you need that acid flux, and don't try to do this with plumber solder. It just doesn't work very well. And most of the plumber solder you buy these days doesn't even have lead in it, and it doesn't do a good job of this kind of stuff. So if you don't have 60-40 solder, then go looking for some because you'll need it. Now, I'm going to use the torch for this. I want a nice little flame. This is a good torch because I get that nice little pencil-shaped cone in the middle of the flame. Now you can turn it all the way up or you can back it down a little bit, but the trick about soldering is you want it hot enough to melt the solder, but not so hot that you start burning the solder. If you get it too hot, you'll just burn the solder and it won't flow down into the recesses where you need it to go. So what we're going to do, we're just going to start heating this up. As you can see right away, that flux melts. So just going to warm that up a little bit. Now I'm going to put a dab of solder on there, and I'm going to watch that really closely because I just want it hot enough that it starts to flow and starts to actually stick to that steel. Okay, you don't want to get it too hot. You'll know it's flowing because all of a sudden it'll start to disappear and go down into the hole. Like I say, you don't want to get it too hot. There you go. You can just see it sinking down in. That's telling me that it's attached to that steel now. And it's going down the wire where you want it to go. And I can see just a little tiny bit of it kind of oozing out the other side there. That's all there is to it. So now what I'm going to do is let that cool off, and I will take this over to the grinder and just grind away that little bit of solder and those cable pieces that are sticking out. And if everything is good and I've done a decent job, I should have myself a brake cable. So let's see what happens. And there we go. Let me move that old gear out of the way so you can see what's happening here. Try to reach up there. So the cable's working just like it should. Goes up, goes into the old brake cable there. Anyway, that's great. So I now have a brake cable and a clutch cable. The only cable left to make up is of course the one for the throttle. And I'm going to go see if I have a piece of throttle cable, and if not, I'm going to have to get one. Anyway, thanks for watching. You can like or subscribe if you want. Thank you. Okay, I've got the throttle connected to the carburetor now. Let's have a look inside that carburetor. Maybe you can see the slide going up and down. I'm not sure. Yeah, you can see it moving, at least to some degree anyway. But anyhow, I was going to film the way that I did this little cable up, but it was exactly the same thing I did with the brake cable, only with a slightly smaller cable. With these ammo grips, you have to have you make up these little, I don't know what you call it, little ferrule anyway, that goes up into the throttle anchor, I guess you'd call it. Anyways, this is actually a two cable throttle, something you might find on a BSA. Anyway, it works fine for one cable as well. Anyway, that works really nicely, snaps back like it should. And yeah, anyway, so that's all the cables. I'm getting closer and closer to doing the first run up on this. There's a few things I should do yet. I really should make a plug up for that transmission cover. Let's see, before I run, I really should make a chain tensioner lock affair right here to keep the transmission from possibly moving back and forth. I mean, I could just tighten that up really tight, and for the sake of test firing the machine, just run it that way. But I think I'll do that. And before I sneak it out on the road, of course, I still have to finish up the foot pegs and make some sort of a taillight bracket for back here. But it's getting closer all the time. So, like I said before, if you like the video, it only takes a split second to click that like button on the bottom. If you want to subscribe, go ahead. That way, you'll know when I've got something new posted, some other foolishness you can get a laugh out of. Anyway, enjoy your day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.